he's talking about there's more footage. There's 140 hours that he has, and each episode was only maybe an hour, I think. There was 4 episodes, so there's at least 130 something more hours that he hasn't edited or produced.
For some reason, Diddy, around the time of his arrest, thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be exonerated later, so I'm going to film all this, and then I can use it in my big comeback later when I'm not in jail. Didn't work out the way he thought, and it turns out he went to jail for a few years. All right, he didn't get the full amount, but he still got a few years. And 50 Cent somehow managed to pay for the footage off of the videographer. Probably Diddy's worst nightmare, this. It's got to be up there. Now, we're going to get into what's in the actual documentary, and fucking hell, it's something. But
Was there anything that surprised you from that footage?
The footage, well, I mean, I think it's rare to find someone who's being, talked about all over the country. All eyes were on him, so to speak. And it was really interesting to see his last days of freedom, and what was sort of important to him. Obviously, there's phone calls with his attorneys, with his team. It was very interesting to watch a man who's known for his brand presence. He has a really amazing knack for marketing and all of that, and how he was sort of taking that into account in how he was coming off to the public, in the days leading up to his arrest and indictment.
Like 3 or 4 pictures in the documentary that I've seen of myself. Some people say they saw more, but I know three different times where I was certain places and you could actually see me in the documentary, and that's the only.
Millions of viewers caught the exact same vibe instantly. Heavy accusations, pitch black energy throughout. The timeline alone was sickening, but despite everything laid out, something felt totally off. Not missing evidence, and not a lack of charges. The project was missing that gritty, unfiltered reality. It felt way too polished, like a rehearsed PR rollout instead of naked truth. The film hit hard, but it felt heavily sanitized, highly manipulated, like the audience got a taste of the real dirt, but the wildest scenes were locked away in a safe somewhere. That is when the street started talking. Rumors leaked that the Netflix crew was sitting on a massive goldmine of unreleased video. Suddenly, the culture shifted gears. Nobody cared about what actually made it to the screen anymore. We only cared about what got buried. And this matters, because the lost tapes weren't just boring studio clips or throwaway background shots. Industry insiders say this tape rolled right before Diddy's 2024 arrest. His empire was crumbling, the heat was boiling over, and his entire legacy was catching fire live on camera. That hidden reel does not just add a few footnotes, it violently flips the entire emotional core of the scandal. What makes this deeply insane is the heavy hitters pulling the strings here. In one corner, you got 50 Cent, a lifelong enemy who absolutely hates Diddy's guts, and a master at weaponizing street beef into a massive, profitable spectacle. In the other corner stands Gene Deal. This guy was not just spectating from the cheap seats, he literally lived deep inside Diddy's inner circle for years. And Gene swears the clips we just watched are barely a drop in the bucket. That tag team alone forces everyone to watch. But the courtroom drama takes it higher. Netflix officially claims they bought every single clip completely by the book. Diddy's camp is screaming theft, claiming unauthorized leaks. Meanwhile, 50 keeps trolling, teasing a mountain of hidden files, and Gene Deal is echoing every single word of it. When you lay all these toxic puzzle pieces out, one massive question hijacks the whole narrative.
Reason, Diddy, around the time of his arrest, thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be exonerated later, so I'm going to film all this, and then I can use it in my big comeback later when I'm not in jail. Didn't work out the way he thought, and it turns out he went to jail for a few years. All right, he didn't get the full amount, but he still got a few years. And 50 Cent somehow managed to pay for the footage off of the videographer. Probably Diddy's worst nightmare, this. It's got to be up there. Now, we're going to get into what's in the actual documentary, and fucking hell, it's something. But let's quickly take a look at 50 Cent's press tour, where he looks like a kid at Christmas right now. I've never seen a man this happy when it wasn't on like the day his kid was born.
How did you get that footage of Diddy?
I figure most journalists would not disclose their sources.
50 Cent's a journalist now, is he? He's ruthless.
Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
I would doubt he knows.
Oh God, he's bad to the bone, isn't he? What 50 Cent is doing right now is basically a lesson to us all, right? Maybe we're just not hating enough on the people who are shit to us. And the documentary starts out with Diddy panicking about his public reputation just days before he was due to get arrested. On the phone to his lawyer, trying to come up with strategy.
We need the core theme to be, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong on any front.
By the way, these conversations, the lawyer had no idea he was recording them. them. So when the lawyer's like, yeah, we need everyone to believe you did nothing wrong, it kind of takes away from when the lawyer is out in public saying, yeah, my client is completely innocent, and now he's showing the behind the scenes where he clearly didn't think he was very innocent. So not Diddy's smartest move, however, throughout this journey, you'll see he makes a lot of crazy decisions.
I don't think it's working. I listened. I've been a superb client, as you said. I jumped on the plane. I'm coming to New York, but I'm just running around waiting for a shoe to drop.
He's shitting himself right now, in case you can't tell, and he really doesn't look good.
It's the middle of September and there's still no indictment.
Bro, then you have to have a spokesman. You have to have some sort of comms to constantly be pushing that, Mark. Because you may just be a person that you just may watch CNN. You know what I'm saying? And there's 9 billion people in the world, and 7 billion of them is on Instagram and TikTok.
He's basically trying to get control of the narrative. That's what he's really worried about. He wants public perception to be, this was all bullshit. Unfortunately for him, we had all seen the CCTV of him beating the shit out of Cassie. So we know you're not a good guy, man. That's out there. A statement from your solicitor is really not going to change that.
We have to find somebody that'll work with us, whether they're from this country or from another country. It could be somebody that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business of media and propaganda.
We need to brainwash some motherfuckers right now, and we need people who are used to working with the dirtiest of dirty, because that's what he is, and he's admitting it. How could you let this footage fall into the hands of 50 Cent, my guy? And honestly, it always comes down to money with Diddy, because Diddy didn't get rich just because he was, clever in music. Diddy got rich because he robbed people all the time, and him not taking care of the people around him, it just comes back to bite him a million times over.
It's like we have a movie, you're speaking this language, and you know what I'm saying, we need subtitles, and we're not providing the audience with subtitles. And I invited you to this movie, and you in this thing, you don't know what's going on. You just see you just see the images, quickly. Now it has a whole life of its own.
I gotta say, this whole doc was edited well. When he said you just see the pictures and they cut to the CCTV. Well done, 50. You nailed that, son. If you're going to take him down in style. So you get a clear window from the jump here into Diddy's psyche. He doesn't give a fuck about Cassie or any of these girls. He doesn't give a fuck about anyone. It's save yourself mentality, and it's crisis mode. And you can see on his face, he's got a drug problem. This is at an all-time high of his drug taking, surely, because he is stressed the fuck.
That viral leaked footage zeroes in on Diddy's final frantic days before his September 2024 federal arrest. That timeline is crucial because it completely flips how we view the clips. This was not some rich mogul just casually vlogging his lavish lifestyle. This was absolutely not a guy shooting content totally blind to the storm headed his way. Based on how insiders described the tape, Combs clearly knew the feds and the lawsuits were closing in fast from every possible angle. Instead of chilling out, he was moving like a cornered animal, frantically scrambling to control the narrative before the headline swallowed him whole. That is exactly why this behind-the-scenes footage feels so incredibly dark and unsettling. One of the heaviest scenes reportedly catches him pacing a hotel room, arguing with his high-priced lawyer over the speakerphone. His voice sounds calm, but the actual words expose a much deeper layer of pure panic. They talk about losing everything, spinning the message, and desperately forcing the public to buy his complete innocence. It reveals a game plan that abandons actual legal defense, shifting straight into full-blown propaganda and narrative control. That shift is massive. When a suspect stops fighting the actual charges and starts obsessing over his street reputation, you are not watching trial prep anymore. You are watching a desperate cover-up unfold in real time. The deeper you dig into these leaks, the focus shifts from his actual words to the timing. These were not the regrets of a man already locked behind bars. We are not talking about some slick PR apology tour. This happened before the handcuffs, before the judge, right before his entire empire turned to dust. This footage catches that exact moment when the hip-hop icon still delusionally thought he could buy his way out, but slowly started realizing that all his millions, industry clout, and elite connections could not stop the bleeding. Grasp that fact, and you realize 50's documentary is barely scratching the surface. If just one tiny leaked clip sparked this massive global firestorm of outrage, then the unreleased vault footage is way more explosive than what we saw. It means the hard drives probably hide a lot more, not just legal tricks, but a total mental breakdown, raw panic, pure terror, and a grim look at how a supposed untouchable billionaire acts when the feds finally kick down the door. That is exactly why Combs' lawyers are losing their minds. They claim these were strictly private legal chats. Curtis Jackson and Netflix clearly smell blood in the water, and caught in the middle is the terrifying truth that the absolute worst, most damning evidence is still hidden from the public eye completely.
How'd you get it, and what does that scene show?
Well, I mean, you know, you're a journalist, Harvey. Harvey, you would not disclose your sources.
We usually don't.
Yeah, but I got it. Yeah.
What he said.
And what do you think it conveys? Because we see someone trying to pull the strings and talking about, he would say affecting, others would say manipulating the public views of the allegations.
I think that, you know, one big theme of the series is to go behind the scenes to really understand how brilliant you could say Sean Combs is at marketing, at owning his narrative, controlling the narrative at all times. And so why would that stop, you know, when his life is on the line? So I think that, you know, on its face, that's what it is. But as you get deeper in the film, you start to realize, you know, perhaps how some of these tactics, you know, how they really came to present themselves, you know, during the trial.
You show that, his abilities, his early rise.
Right.
Alexandra, you also give time to victims of the alleged abuse. Some of the cases are in different procedural postures. And you show victims who were women and men. Why is that important?
Because, you know, victims of sexual assault, sexual violence, you know, that should... gender should not be a part of that conversation. When you are a victim, you are a victim. And I think that, you know, this series was a platform in a way for these alleged...
Word on the street is he was filming his every move for a personal project. The master plan, from what folks are saying, was using these tapes later to spin his own narrative, protect the brand, and maybe fuel a massive comeback story if he beat the legal charges with enough room to breathe. But schemes like that only survive if your inner circle stays loyal, well paid, and locked in. And that is exactly where the foundation cracked. According to people in the know, deals were left hanging, the money dried up, and basic trust just totally collapsed. The second that happened, those home movies stopped being private memories and turned into hard leverage. That is a massive shift. In a world built on secrets, the minute trust vanishes, the exact things meant to protect you turn lethal real fast. That is exactly why the camera crew's alleged involvement is so crucial. If the guys holding the hard drive stopped feeling safe or paid, the tapes meant to save Diddy could suddenly get used to burn him down instead. And that is exactly where 50 Cent and his production crew allegedly enter the chat. 50 has not spelled out the whole timeline, but he definitely hasn't denied seeing way more than the general public. Instead, he is doing his usual thing, dropping hints, cracking jokes, and letting the hype keep bubbling up. That strategy is heavy because just the rumor of raw footage creates a brutal psychological pressure campaign by itself. Without dropping a single clip, he keeps all eyes glued to the threat. More tapes, more wild secrets, more dark moments that haven't even seen the light of day yet. Once that happens, the power completely shifts. That might be the deepest part of this whole saga. A boss who used to control every room, every relationship, and top-tier access is now sweating while someone else holds the tapes of his darkest, most exposed moments. That is why these hidden files hold so much weight. Not just for the wild stuff they might expose, but because they prove he has totally lost his crown.
And that's what it was about. So that's why you don't see a cameo other than the pictures they used of me on the film in the documentary. I got like 3 or 4 pictures in the documentary that I've seen of myself. You know, some people say they saw more, but I know three different times where I was certain places and you could actually see me in the documentary, and that's the only thing you're going to get. But the stories that they told in the documentary, bro, come on. They could have went a whole lot deeper. They could have did a whole lot more. So I ain't in the documentary because that lady that was the director, I think, what's her name? Alex, you know, Alex Staple. You know her name, Mighty? Yo, Mighty, just give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna look this up, all right? Okay. Her name is Alex Stapleton. The director that I spoke to was Alex Stapleton. She was the one who told me that she was the director, she was the producer, whatever, this, that, and the third, the whole 9 yards. And she was talking mad greasy to me. And listen here, it's no matter, after you talk that kind of talk to me, there's no amount of money she could have paid me anyway for me to get in there. You know, my story is more too valuable, you know, getting in the depth or getting in depth with this whole stuff, and it would have helped that documentary a whole lot. You know what I'm saying? In actuality, they used all the stuff that I told them and did it the way that I was saying do it. Tim Dog started off with the childhood with Puff and the whole 9 yards. Kirk Burrows do the business part, but they was trying to put people in there like Mark Curry and other people to talk about the streets or what was going on, a certain thing. But Mark can only say so much, you know what I'm saying, because he was an artist. So he wasn't with Puff like I was with him during that time when we was running back and forth here and there and the whole 9 yards. So, Miss Alex Stapleton is the one reason why I'm not in the documentary, but it's all right with me. I've been in a lot of documentaries. I did The Shine. I did the A&E. I did the Discovery Channel. I did the Fox. I've been in a whole lot of different documentaries. And I'm always on the art of dialogue. So the people been getting most of the information from here anyway.
Yeah, man, you always on here, man. Always got to bring you on. So with that being said, man, I want to get right into the documentary, man. How you feel about the documentary, man? The behind the scenes footage they got of Diddy leading up to him getting arrested, and how you feel about all that, man?
Well, what I feel about the documentary, they left a whole lot of key things out. If they was going to do something and they're going to say in the reckoning of Sean Combs, the reckoning, or Diddy, the reckoning and stuff like that, it should have been a lot of people that we lost because of him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't only Big. It wasn't only Tupac. You understand? For the atmosphere that he put those kids in, you got a guy named Anthony Wolf Jones, who was from Bad Boy, from its conception as doing security and being one of the financiers of Puff having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around before he got to Clyde Davis. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't able to tell that story because they didn't have no intel on that story or what went down, or they didn't do their investigations right.
He is speaking as a guy who knows exactly how that entire machine operated from the inside. And his most consistent point about Diddy is straight to the point. Cameras were never out of place. According to Gene, recording everything was just routine. Meetings were documented, parties got filmed. Those moments that felt totally private usually were not. The way he tells it, filming was never for the memories. It was strictly about control. That matters because it totally flips how the public views this unreleased footage. If cameras were always rolling in the background, then the fact that more unseen tapes exist is not even slightly surprising on its own. What hits hard is the sheer reality that those tapes are now floating outside the grip of the man who thought they would protect him. Gene seems completely unfazed by that. Honestly, he sounds like a dude who always knew this fallout was completely inevitable the second that inner circle loyalty started crumbling. That right there is why his words hit so heavy. He is not just guessing that more hidden tapes exist. He implies the Netflix documentary played it way too safe, leaving out major players, vital backstory, and the actual casualties tied to that toxic environment Diddy allegedly built up. Put simply, the public did not get the absolute truth. They just got the sanitized cut, a version packaged and legally cleared for streaming without stepping into wildly dangerous legal territory. That builds a crazy level of tension. On one hand, the film was already explosive enough to trigger mass outrage, heavy lawsuits, and non-stop internet rumors. But on the flip side, according to Gene, it still pulled its punches. They left major dark stories completely untouched. It silenced crucial voices that could have pushed this entire scandal way further over the edge, painting a reality way darker, wider, and far more connected than the audience currently realizes. If that holds up, this documentary did not finish the narrative. It barely scratched the surface. And Gene stepping up to the mic just proves exactly that. We are not looking at the full picture yet, just the tiny fraction that was carefully cherry-picked, stitched together, and cleared for streaming. That is exactly why the threat of those unreleased tapes keeps looming over everything like a dark cloud.
I didn't want to say that 50 Cent did the whole documentary. He was responsible for doing the whole documentary, what goes in there and what goes out of there. Now, I don't believe that. And I don't believe that he's responsible for everything that goes in there. I don't believe he's responsible for everything that goes out of there. Guys want to say that he's snitching, you know what I'm saying, because he's telling his truth about what went down and what he saw or what he heard or whatever like that. I don't know how to love my enemy. And if I gotta put out the truth about something that he was doing and is wrong, and that was wrong, I don't have no problem with that, 50. Not a problem at all. Keep doing it. Maybe enough men come out and speak out on some bull stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're saying that Diddy's family is preparing a $1 billion lawsuit over this documentary.
I think they dropped it already. I don't think they ain't gonna have a chance, because before you put something out like that, they're gonna dot their I's and cross their T's. They're gonna make sure everything is in place. And if Puff had friends over there at Netflix, if it haven't came down, if it haven't came down yet, they ain't got a leg to stand on.
Yeah, you just made me think of something. I'm sure Netflix has 1 million lawyers, and I'm sure they had plenty of lawyers go over this thing to make sure it was airtight.
Yes, sir.
And they might probably even cut some stuff out that maybe they weren't even sure about. Just probably, man. Well, Gene, I appreciate you taking the time. Dope content as always. And I wish you luck, man. I know, man, you get on these interviews and they go crazy, man.
Yeah, man, listen. A lot of people want to, come at me, and everybody want to find fault in 50, find fault in me, find fault in anybody who's speaking out against the evil shit that's been going on. But what about find fault from the person who did it?
The man is not speaking like a guy who thinks that film was the absolute final word. He sounds like someone who knows the final cut was aggressively filtered, heavily sanitized, and largely incomplete. And that matters heavily because Gene is not just blindly claiming that hidden footage exists in some random vacuum. He anchors that claim to a much darker reality about how Diddy's whole empire allegedly operated. To hear him tell it, those cameras literally never stopped rolling because the recordings themselves were the actual foundation, part legal shield, part blackmail material, part ultimate flex of power. And the second you accept that twisted logic, the rumor of unreleased tape stops being crazy speculation and becomes terrifyingly inevitable. That reality completely explains why the massive fallout surrounding this documentary has felt so deeply tense. The true danger is not just what the public watched. The real threat is that the aired footage alone was enough to convince the streets that a massive vault of dark material still exists. And once millions believe that, total silence looks guilty as hell. PR statements feel like desperate damage control, and hoarding the raw tapes becomes just as explosive as leaking the footage to the world. Gene's take on Netflix flips the script entirely. He figures the streaming giant vetted this stuff ruthlessly, meaning if specific, clips survived the chopping block and made the final edit, they definitely cleared some heavy legal hurdles first. But at the exact same time, he hints they scrapped certain clips simply because they were way too sketchy, too toxic, or just impossible to nail down legally. That leaves behind the exact kind of void where wild theories breed. Because when the streets figure out that this docuseries is just the sanitized, legal-friendly version of events, minds automatically race toward the raw, untouchable truth. That is where the real terror of that vault footage kicks in. It is not just about what is captured on tape, but the dark picture that forms when fans realize the actual truth dwarfs the streamed docuseries. Plus, Gene's deeper frustration shines a light on a completely different issue here. He keeps asking why the culture burns so much fuel dragging the victims instead of the heavyweight mogul sitting dead center of these allegations. That is no small detail. It exposes how blowing the whistle and giving statements and calling out the boss constantly gets twisted into treason, while the actual grime gets swept away. So this film is not just entertainment anymore. It is a mirror testing who we blame when an untouchable hip-hop god's empire finally crumbles to dirt.
Was telling me on his way here, I didn't see this, but apparently there's another 100 hours of Diddy footage on the cutting room floor.
So Diddy is still doing press. I mean, Diddy. 50.
Diddy is not doing press.
No, he's doing
press on the yard.
He's doing press, like he's doing push-ups. No, 50 is still doing press, and obviously with the success of the Reckoning documentary, he's talking about there's more footage. There's 140 hours that he has, and each episode was only maybe an hour, I think. There was 4 episodes, so there's at least 130 something more hours that he hasn't edited or produced. And he's saying that he may put it out on YouTube, just to put it out there,
like on his 50 Cent Devo page.
I don't know if it'll be on his page, but he just said, he doesn't know if he's going to release it with Netflix or through Netflix. He might just, put it out on YouTube or wherever, some other platform. But the one thing that he said that was interesting is he said, because you see people out here trying to, say, oh, the documentary can paint a narrative, this and the third. And his words were, if you see the rest of this footage, there will be no more, kind of like, oh, you can paint this narrative. It's pretty clear cut, the things that are being said in the documentary, the things that he still can't believe Puff, because he says that a lot, like he can't believe Puff actually recorded all of this.
Yeah, what this exposes about the entire industry might be the most chilling reality check yet. If one rap mogul tracked his dirty work this obsessively, you gotta wonder who else is doing it. Up in those penthouses, cameras are not rolling for home movies. They roll for blackmail. They roll for leverage. They make damn sure guests know their darkest moments are locked away, ready to be weaponized if anybody steps out of line. That paranoia dictates every move. It filters every word. Even if the crew does not explicitly know why the red light is on, the unspoken threat suffocates the room. That is exactly why this missing vault tape matters way beyond Diddy's downfall. If that hidden stash actually holds shady lawyer talks, massive emotional breakdowns, and calculated spin tactics, plus a billionaire scrambling to plug the holes in his sinking ship live on tape, this ain't just a court exhibit. It is a raw blueprint of untouchable elites panicking. We are not talking slick PR apologies or staged morning show chats. We mean the ugly, unfiltered crash. That is why heavyweights dump millions into legal hounds just to bury the truth. Because when the vault cracks open, it doesn't just spark one measly headline. It threatens the whole damn machine. It shatters the illusion that rich moguls can forever dictate what hits the timeline. And if 50 Cent genuinely holds the smoking gun to kill every single excuse for this grimy behavior, then Netflix dropping a half-finished story just builds up the insane street anticipation. It proves to everyone watching that this case ain't closed. It just started. And honestly, that cliffhanger is way more terrifying than a neat ending. It means the sickest, most damning receipts are still waiting to drop.
I want to ask you, how you feel about the documentary on Diddy? And you and 50, what's going on between both y'all? Me personally, the documentary was incredible, man. Shout out to 50, man. But I know you and 50, y'all got something going on, right?
Indeed. So originally, when I heard about the reckoning of Sean Diddy Combs' documentary that was produced by 50 Cent, I wasn't going to watch it. And I wasn't going to watch it because, quite frankly, I had grown a little tired of the Diddy case. I had followed it, I had studied it, I had researched it. And at this point, the man was sentenced to 50 months in jail, I believe the time was that the feds gave him. There really wasn't much left to talk about. Everything had already been put out there, all the hours of testimony, hundreds of hours of court proceedings. It was nothing else to talk about as far as I was concerned. And then people kept texting me. They said, Dr. Umar, you got to see this. You got to see this. You got to see this. So one night I can't go to sleep. And I decided to go ahead and watch it. And I watched all the episodes. I will say that it appeared to be very well researched from the point of view that 50 Cent wanted to portray. I don't think it was balanced in that you didn't hear anything positive at all about the man, when in fact, despite the horrendous deeds, which cannot be excused at all.
50 Cent and Gene Deal didn't just put that footage on blast. They totally shattered a much deeper industry illusion. The myth that deep pockets can always buy silence. Netflix streamed a piece of the puzzle, but hid the ugliest truth. And the culture feels that. Honestly, that might be the most terrifying piece of this whole disaster. It's not just about the grim stuff they already exposed. It's about whatever dark secrets are still out there. Tapes still locked in the vault, completely unreleased, still holding enough explosive power to flip everything the public thinks they already know. Because once the streets catch wind that there's more dirt, the whole narrative shifts. The stuff we can see just feels like a setup. The missing pieces suddenly hold way more weight than whatever actually aired. And that leaves the ultimate question hanging over the culture. It ain't whether those extra tapes exist, but what happens when they finally leak? Will they just back up the street rumors or drag out industry demons the public is completely unprepared to handle? That's exactly why this scandal doesn't feel over. It just feels paused. And in an empire built purely on image, clout, and total control, a quiet pause is way more lethal than a conclusion.